Today in this video, we're about to learn about Cleve Sellers. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.
Toward the free and independent Africa.
Well, one final
No, that everything, in terms of history that we know about, by and large, is of a European origin, and it's always highlighted with the white Superman. It's always, everything centers around an individual, not a group of people, not anything that's collective. It's always individually inspired. And we have to begin to get away from that. That's why we have to begin to see ourselves developing institutions that are independent of the present educational institutional structure.
So you think that a thrust should eventually be made in the North to develop substantial numbers of black colleges?
If they're totally independent and away from the Ford foundations and away from the sources that usually act as co-option agents.
Okay, I'm all for building more black structures. We already have HBCUs. Let me know in the comments, what more do you think we need?
Agents that will give you in order to control you. Those schools have to be totally independent. Totally independently financed, totally independently conceived of, totally independently developed. The curriculum has to be one, I think, of nation building. We have to begin to develop new concepts, like, for an example, we are an African people. We have to see ourselves as much more than just the population within the confines of the United States. We are not a minority. We are, in fact, a majority. We have to see our relationship to our brothers wherever they might be, in the West Indies, in Brazil, in Cuba, or wherever they might be. We have to begin to understand that in order for one to have power, he has to have land, and that there is a natural origin of black people, and that is in Africa, and Africa is very plentiful in terms of resources, natural resources. And there are some basic things that we have to be able to do. One of them is that we're going to have to be able to provide goods and services for our people. We're going to have to be able to control force and violence.
Okay, so he said there's power behind owning land, and we need to provide goods and services for our people. Let me know, do you think that there's power behind land ownership? And what goods and services do you think we need to provide?
And what I'm talking about here is that we don't control any of the police, we don't control the Army, we don't control the National Guard, we don't control NATO, we don't control any of those agencies. Subsequently, they're always used against us. We have to be able to control that so that we can control whether or not black people can live. We have to be able to control the minds of our people, that they do not 45 women.
Let me run off some ratings.
Okay. You may want to go over the last point about controlling, you said education, controlling black people's minds.
Yeah, well, controlling our minds. We have to be able to have people at least consistent, that they understand the contradictions inside the society, and that that they begin to deal with those contradictions. We have to be able to do all three of those things in order for us to survive, and that in order for you to have power, you have to have land, like I said initially, and that we have to see, like Africa as being that particular land base, that once it becomes free and independent, will provide those three things. It will provide the resources for us to produce goods and services for our people. It will provide resources for us to employ a certain amount of control as protection. I'm talking protection for our people, and it will also provide us with the resources so that we can provide the material that black people need to read and know about in order for them to be free and independently psychologically, intellectually, and philosophically. So our efforts and energies have to be toward, developing free.
To have dropped
Well,
out of, say, the public eye, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's any less effective and
right.
working any harder, any less
The
effective.
the organizations, well, let's say it like this: the mass media has a way of projecting certain organizations that they won't project it, and they have a certain way of dropping others out of the public eye, as you said. Um, SNCC has always been an organization of organizers. Um, it's basically, in and around the South at this point. The staff is not extremely large. One of the reasons being that when it began to drop out of the public eye, um, the government and state, local, and federal government began to exert a lot of pressure on people who were either members of affiliated with the organization. Subsequently, a lot of people are doing time in prison. Um, they are being attacked as organizations which are in the public's eye today are being attacked, and they have a program in Atlanta, Georgia, around the H. Rap Brown Center there. They do still have the national office in Atlanta, and they still have a substantial staff. So they're still operational. I am not a member of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee at this point, but I do think that my situation in relationship to South Carolina is an example of what I'm trying to raise, and that is that the media has a tendency to catch our eye, and we begin to focus in on a specific. And at this point, the specific is in fact the Panthers and the death of the 28 Panthers. Now, I understand. I understand black people's commitment to black people's dying, but I think that we have to understand that in the process of that particular 28 black people dying, there are numerous other black people dying all over, and that the mass media has managed to get us to focus in on that specific. And while we're focusing in on that specifically, they have the government has an opportunity to move around and deal with all the other brothers who are actively engaged in struggle who may not be a part of that particular organization. And we have to emphasize that, because that's what's happening. We get picked off all over while everybody is projecting into let's say the death of Fred Hampton, the raid on the Los Angeles Panther office, and I don't say that in terms of trying to downgrade any of that has happened to the Panthers. I'm saying that so that black people can begin to see that they have to have a wider perspective, and it has to be much larger than the news service, because we have to understand that the news service work in the interests of white America. It does not work in our interest, by and large. It does not work in our interest, and we have to begin to be more analytical of those kinds of situations.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
You have to admit, we've learned quite a lot about what Cleve Sellers had to say. Please tell me your thoughts about what he had to say in the comments. I hope to learn a little bit more about you from the gemstones I left in this video. Feel free to talk about things I didn't ask about. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.